Hello everybody, welcome to the Red Devil Experience. How you all doing? We are here live with the Red Devil Daily, where we do the roundup of Manchester United news over the past 24 hours and whatever comes out as we are live. And we are going to discuss... We are going to discuss Manchester United. Apparently Alphonso Davies remains a dream for Manchester United. Sorry, I had some feedback with the sound. We are going to discuss Alphonso Davies' dream. Apparently, he remains a very big transfer target for Manchester United. Some news coming out about that today. Leny Yoro apparently back in training today, so he's here doing individual training. We're going to discuss that. Manchester United are targeting some Wonderkids as well, and we're going to get into that as well. And we have more Manchester United news coming your way, so we are going to get into all of that. If you can, please smash the like button for me real quick, because it helps the channel grow. So if you want to help us out in that way, we greatly appreciate it. And if you're not a subscriber, subscribe so that we can grow the community and you can get involved and join. I see Axe Lord is in here and my buddy Daniel is in here as well. How you guys doing? Hope everybody is doing well. Hope you guys are doing well. But let's get straight into the show. So it was reported that Alphonso Davies continues to be a dream transfer for Manchester United. This is coming from Plettigol. Plettigol is a German journalist who has links to obviously Bayern Munich, very strong German sources, and is a reliable journalist when it comes to anything that has to do with German based news. So there was that, you know, this was the one that was quoted. Here is what he actually put out. This is his full tweet, full information. And he said Alphonso Davies has regained his starting spot on the Vincent Company. Internally, it's noted that his form is improving because he has been out of the starting squad at Bayern, which has led to more speculation and fuel around his future. It does seem very likely that he's not going to renew his contract at Bayern Munich, and he will be a free agent in the summer. He continues on by saying, there have not yet been concrete new talks about a new contract beyond 2025, but Bayern is open to an extension. However, the risk of a free transfer remains. Davies continues to be a dream transfer for Manchester United, as previously revealed. Real Madrid remain a serious option for him next summer, and this was the update that he came out with today. Now, as we spoke about last time, I think we have a very, very slim chance of getting Alphonso Davies, but Manchester United are highly interested in Alphonso Davies. It is being labeled as a dream transfer for Manchester United, and they might pull out some stops to try and sway him into our path and into our club. I think the most likely destination for Alphonso Davies will probably be most likely Real Madrid. I don't think he's going to stay at Bayern Munich. But you never know. There could always be a U-turn, but it doesn't seem likely. It seems like his most likely destination will be Real Madrid. Now, INEOS are working apparently behind the scenes to try and somehow convince Alphonso Davies to come to the club and join the project. If they manage to pull this off, it's going to be an absolutely fantastic signing. He is a fantastic player and would be levels for Manchester United in terms of quality, and what he would add to the squad. I think he would actually very much excel in the Premier League. I think, you know, he has the pace. I also think he has the strength as well to play in the Premier League and just you know, add some real quality to Manchester United. But I think he would be able to handle the Premier League very, very well. I think we've seen already the likes of somebody like Mazzawari coming in and basically has adapted pretty well. Alphonso Davies to me seems more of like a plug-and-play type of player, where I don't think there would be much of a transition period for Alphonso. I think you could just slap him in there, and I think you would see the quality almost immediately from Alphonso Davies. So, yeah, I mean, Alphonso Davies definitely high-quality player, and, you know, I don't know if INEOS is going to be able to get him in. I don't see it as highly likely, but, you know, he keeps being linked to us. So we have to keep at least one eye on it and see what develops out of there. There is a possibility that we could get him. I mean, he is a free agent, so there's nothing is really set in stone. And there's always a possibility that either Madrid don't pursue it, or there's a breakdown in that aspect, and we could come in, and we could, kind of swoop in and kind of steal it. We're not really given a chance right now, but things can develop further on in as the time passes by and we get closer to the summer transfer window, or once we enter the summer transfer window. Axe is saying he believes that Davies' PR team is using United as leverage to get more money on salary for Perez, and it's a very good point. It could be definitely a possibility. I mean, he is supposed to anyway get more money, considering that Real Madrid won't be paying a transfer fee for a player like Alphonso Davies. They might be playing the field a little bit in terms of maybe they're trying to get the best contract possible. So Bayern might come out of nowhere and offer him a very high contract, one that they have been reluctant to do so because maybe they want to keep him. And if you drum up interest and you throw Manchester United into the mix, there's more than just interest from just Real Madrid. It would also be from Manchester United. I'm sure there's also other clubs in the mix. So, as much interest as you can drum up for Alphonso Davies from an Alphonso Davies agent standpoint, the better. You know what I mean? So Rajat's in here as well. Good to see you, Rajat. And Axe saying also, hate comment, the Rat should use the opportunity to show determination and power. Pay Davies a salary of $4 million a week. They also buy Bellingham. Otherwise no order for the Rat. I'm good. We're here, Rajat, talking about Davies. We got a couple things. Yoro's back in training apparently, so we're gonna talk about that. Anthony, there's talk about him going on loan. There's an update about Eriksen leaving at the end of the season on a free, and there's apparently we're scouting and we're monitoring a couple young and exciting Wonderkids, so we're going to get into that. We also have updates from Erik ten Hag himself, who did a lot of speaking today. There was I think a Writers Association award was something that he was at. He had a lot of comments. Diego Dalot had some comments, so we're going to get into all of that. And there is a slight update that is not 100% involved Manchester United, but there is an update surrounding kind of Xabi Alonso, since his name was thrown in around the Manchester United managerial talk, and can still be a possibility depending on circumstances going forward. So yeah, we're gonna get involved in all of that stuff. Lyle's in here as well, so good to see all of you. Glad you're all joining us. Get involved in the chat. If you're new, get involved in the chat. Make sure you smash the like button for us because it helps the channel grow. But yeah, we were just talking about Alphonso Davies, and Axe making some very good points, basically saying that there is the possibility that this could just be Davies' agent, Davies' PR team trying to drum up some interest, trying to get a better contract offer from Real Madrid, or maybe even Bayern Munich as well. And that is a big possibility. Listen, when you are Manchester United, you have to be wary with these types of updates, because our names do get linked to many players that we are not really interested in, or not really putting in work to get, because either it's a long shot and it's not most likely to happen. But we will continue to discuss, and we will continue to keep an eye on it, because at the end of the day, we don't actually know, and we keep getting linked with him. So I think, of course, in reality, Manchester United, the quality of the player, I think it would be a dream for us to get him in, because if you just slap Alphonso Davies into the team we have now, and you look at that team, I think the team just goes up in significant stature immediately. He's a very experienced, very established player. He has high quality, has a lot to offer. So it would almost be a dream for Manchester United. I just don't think at the current moment that it is very likely for him to come to Manchester United. But there is always a possibility. So we just got to take it as it comes. But we do have an update on Leny. And this has come from numerous places, but I chose to include Fabrizio Romano. And Fabrizio has updated us by saying Manchester United defender Leny Yoro has just returned to individual training after his long injury. His comeback's now closer, and he will be back soon. So this is very good, encouraging, and positive news. Leny Yoro doing individual training. Next step will be to do team training. Once they do team training, they are more so closer than ever to returning to the pitch. There has been no set timeline put on when he is going to enter team training and go from the individual training to the team training, but it is important that Leny Yoro is back on the pitch himself. It means that he is very, very close to a return. A lot of people are very excited by this. There's a lot of hype surrounding this. We still don't know necessarily what his main role is going to be. Is he going to be able to challenge for a starting spot? Is he going to be able to fight his way into a starting spot between, I would say, Martinez and De Ligt? Certainly, there might be an argument. I think Martinez and De Ligt, they've had some good performances. They've had some very bad performances. So I think there is maybe possibly an opportunity. If he does play very well and he does perform very well and he trains very well, there may be a possibility for him to break in and kind of steal that starting spot. But we got to see what comes out of it, really. Because, he is on the younger side. He may not be 100% ready. He may still need some more development. I think maybe physicality-wise, he may struggle a little bit. But he might surprise us all, and he might be very, sometimes looks are deceiving, and he could have that strength and that physicality there. But I think he does seem a little bit on the, I don't want to say scrawny side, because he is a big player. He is a tall player. But he might struggle in that aspect, because again, we got him from the French league. The French league, compared to the Premier League, the physicality, the speed of it is nowhere near the Premier League. So, there might be an adjustment period, especially because he has suffered, quite a serious injury, and he has just come back from it. The hoping is that Leny Yoro has done strengthening and individual training that has kind of, strengthened him in quite a numerous amount of areas, and therefore he will be able to come in and be ready to go. And maybe he's a little bit stronger than he was previously, because when you are out, obviously you focus on rehabilitation, but there is a lot more individual aspects that you could kind of focus on in instead of doing the team training, which is just the teamwork on the pitch. You can really strengthen yourself in many areas. So you have to take that time and do what you're given. Jason's in here as well. Jason, we're just talking about, we just talked about Alphonso Davies a little bit. He's been linked with Manchester United. Leny Yoro has come back into individual training, so he's set to go into team training, and I would say probably the next couple weeks. I would say the next probably 2 weeks, we'll see him somewhere in that period into team training. Of course, we don't want to rush him back, and I don't think Manchester United are. I think they've taken his time with him, just like they've taken their time with every other player that has been injured and needs to come back. Sandy is in here as well. Sandy, good to see you. And Rajat saying he can displace De Ligt, Martinez, or Maguire as well. He is going to know. Let us wait and watch. Yoro does seem to look generational. Well, the thing about Yoro is that I think with the ability that he has, with the factor of that he is young and he has high potential, I do believe that already, probably, and some might say this is unfair and some might say this might be jumping the gun, but I do think that he is probably already on par in terms of like fighting with Maguire for at least a substitution spot. And it's going to be actually quite interesting to see what happens in that dynamic, because Maguire is on the bench, Lindelof is also on the bench. They are two backups. And I don't really think it would be fit to have necessarily 3 center backs on the bench. Now, and there's also Johnny Evans as well. which we almost forgot about. So, this dynamic is going to be quite interesting. I mean, Johnny Evans has always put in a good performance while he's been available. I think Johnny Evans is certainly ahead of he's certainly ahead of Victor Lindelof in the pecking order. I think Maguire definitely has put himself in the mix with his performances. So it's going to be an interesting dynamic to see because we can't have all these center backs on the bench. Does that mean Johnny drops out? Does that mean, for the time being, maybe we do have at least 3 center backs because we're still missing our left backs? And, we might need a backup in terms of maybe throwing Lindelof at right back just in case something happens to one of Delo or Mazzawari. Mazzawari, of course, obviously recovering from his predicament that he had, and he did come on and have a couple minutes in the previous match, but he didn't really feature too much. So, but I do expect Yoro to kind of be fighting in there for it. I think Yoro is kind of similar to almost, I would say, probably in the stature of a Kobe Mainu when Kobe was really trying to break in, and also Garnacho. I think he will push these senior players for a spot, and I think that if he does perform well and that he does do training very well, I think he can kind of break into that aspect because I think I think he has already the right amount of ability, coupled with the potential around him. And he is at kind of a good age that he can kind of do something similar to what Mainu and Garnacho have kind of done. Obviously, we have to wait and see. And I'm eager to kind of see a performance out of him on the pitch, in a real game, because I want to see what he really has to offer in a competitive game, in a high competitive game. Because, of course, we've seen him in preseason. He looked good before he got injured, of course. But preseason is preseason, and playing in Premier League matches or Europa League matches or any other type of match is a whole different level. So, I do want to see him get some type of an opportunity so we can, and I want to see him get a couple opportunities so we can judge him correctly in that aspect. And Lyons is in here as well. Lyons, good to see you joining us, buddy, and saying that he's sorry for missing the last couple of streams, been away from home. No problem, no problem. Well, listen, you guys are allowed to come in and go out as much as you want. There's, you guys have your own lives. I'm always grateful for when you're able to join us. And when you're not, it's totally fine. It's totally fine. I get it. So, you're here now, and we're happy you're here now, and that's all that matters. Jason is saying that Yoro is young, and I see potential. It would be great to train with... it would be great to train the player as a left back. He is pacey. Well, that's, interesting, but I don't know if we necessarily should be converting him to a left back, Jason. And, because we bought him to be the center back, you know what I mean? And while maybe he can fill in there, the best course of action is for Manchester United to actually go buy an actual left back, such as an Alphonso Davies, or players that we've been linked in with in the past, such as Kirkez or Robinson from Fulham, etc., etc. There's a couple other options out there. And while it may be good enough, while he may have the pace and, it's good as a backup option for him to, just in case we ever get into an injury crisis or something, he may be able to fit in as a left back for that time being. I don't think we should really be looking to try and develop him as a left back. He was bought solely for center back. That is the plan. That's the position he plays. And he should continue his development as a center back, and he should be looking to kind of make his way into center back because he will be one for the future. I mean, not for nothing. The club may be looking to move on Victor Lindelof at the end of this season, if not in the January transfer window. Johnny Evans is set to look to retire at the end of the window, and there is also a possibility that Manchester United may look to move on Harry Maguire at the end of the season as well. So therefore, what that really leaves us with as solid and future going forward will be Mateus De Ligt, Lisandro Martinez, and Leny Yoro. We are going to need at least one other center back to come in, probably in the summer. but those three are definitely the main future. The other three have question marks or are coming to the end of their tenure at Manchester United, which is why I'm saying that there is a real opportunity for Leny Yoro to push and kind of make his way in there. You know, whether he'll be a starter and he'll displace one of Mateus de Ligt or Martinez, or he will become the immediate substitute, so he will kind of be, you know, in the third place for your for the center back position. You know, is something to be yet to be seen, but we will see what is going to happen. And Rajat just saying, no, why going to train him as a left back? Euro was bought to be Man United to play center back. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, you know, he might have pace. And I don't think you necessarily have to train him as a left back. I think, you know, I think if he has the pace, I think if it ever comes down to it and we're desperate and we really need him to at some point, just in case of an injury crisis or something, you know, maybe he will be able to play there. But definitely his development should continue to be a center back, because that's just, you know, it was what he was bought for, and Manchester United should be going and getting a real left back to fill that position. We've done that many times in the past, and I never really liked it, where we kind of transformed players or tried to, you know, make them into positions that they weren't really there, but we trained them. And I never really liked it. It worked a couple good times on the Ferguson, but after that, you know, it was sort of a mess after the period of Ferguson, and you know, it just never really worked well, and it's something that you really shouldn't really be doing. But he is young enough that you could do it with him, but you know, I just don't see really the point in it. And are you saying Biendes is probably playing goal? Who's AI? Biendes is gonna play goalkeeper. Lion just saying, so Thomas Frank is not it then, damn it. Well, according to the media, it was his audition, Lions, and apparently since he's lost the match, he's failed his audition. So yeah, and I mean, I think one of the problems, and we kind of seen it with the match that we just played against Brentford, is that he played a certain way that is, I guess you would kind of say, predictable, because the way we set up, I mean, the match was very open, but it kind of played into our hands, you know? I think the best tactical thing that they could have done is been a lot more compact against us, made it a lot more frustrating for us, but he went there and he played the football that he always plays, generally, unless he, you know, I've seen them change it against the City, I've seen them kind of change it against an Arsenal, but I think he kind of fell into the trap where they felt like if they went there and played our game, because we were so, you know, their game, because we were so poor previously, that they were able to outplay us. But it kind of played into our hand, because it allowed a lot more space, which allowed us to just be a lot quicker, a lot more counterattacking, a lot more direct and stuff like that. Which I think has also helped, you know, them lose the match. So I think one of the problems there, and that key aspect, is that he didn't kind of tactically match the level that he needed to. I think if he came there and he kind of shored up the shape and the formation, it made it difficult for us to kind of play the way we did. They probably would have had a better chance at winning the match, but I think he played right into our hand in that aspect, and I think we had a very, very good setup, and we had a very good game plan in terms of playing that. We kind of matched them and we outclassed them in that aspect. So yeah. Nouri is very good. He's got potential. Yeah, he's one that also has been linked with United, albeit it's not one of the more stronger links, but he is one that has been linked with Manchester United. He's very attacking. All his attributes, Alphonso Davies, are attacking, driving with the ball, crossing, blah, blah, blah. I mean, yeah, I mean, he's one of those players that I'm saying, he's like a plug and play player. Like, you could just stick him in there, and I think, like, he would just fit in very, very immediately, sort of kind of to what Maz has done, where Maz has just come in. There hasn't really been a transition period with Maz. And I think you would probably see something similar with Alphonso Davies, because, you know, AI is like ChatGPT. I thought you were doing, well, that I know, but I thought you were saying, like, I thought that was like something, you know, like a short name, like an abbreviation for a player or something. But all right. The Lion said, I said on your stream before, the bloody media, that it was the audition of the century. I mean, yeah. So, and Axe saying, I think they tried to be compact and narrow in the first 20 minutes. The way United defended forced them to go wide. And Lion saying also that we won the coin toss helped. They couldn't do the Brentford kickoff. Yeah, I mean, they were really trying to do that, especially in the first, part of the game. They were really trying to score their famous Brentford 2-minute goal or whatever it is. But we held out and we were successful, and we only conceded, one off of a set piece, so we didn't concede an open play goal, and two, there was that whole mishap with the lid too. So, and many people arguing, of course, and rightfully so, that if the lid was there, we probably wouldn't have conceded that goal either. So, yeah, we did very, very well. Rajat saying, what is the priority of positions to focus when in January window is going to come? May probably and hopefully get a new left back. Well, I don't know if it'll necessarily be a left back, because I think the expectation from the club right now is that they're hoping that they're going to have Shaw and Malacia back, and I think the whole kind of plan behind it and the expectation is that Shaw and Malacia will be able to stay fit. More so likely, Tyrell Malacia will be able to be available for, basically the rest of the season. So I don't know if they're actually going to try and pull a left back in the January transfer window. Now, the January transfer window is always tricky. It's hard. It's not an easy thing to do. And the options in January do become limited, but with January, at the same time, there's always maybe sometimes there is a surprise. There is something that pops up that really wasn't on the radar till you get around that opportunity. Or it could be in the middle of January, or the beginning of January, where, something develops at a club where a player is unhappy, wants to move. Maybe they're not getting enough playing time, and they sort of kind of make themselves available, where as of right now, that hasn't really been announced as of yet, because there's a lot of time from now in between that time, and a lot of things can happen. So, I think there might not necessarily be a preferred necessarily position from Manchester United's standpoint. There might be a couple positions, which I would assume would probably be, and albeit I wouldn't say necessarily a center back, but I think it depends on what opportunities present themselves at that moment. And then Manchester United would look into the interest of said position. For example, like, I think, they're definitely looking at a left back. They're definitely thinking about a center back at some point. They're definitely looking at probably adding another striker. Definitely a center mid as well, and quite possibly a winger as well. I don't know if they're focused solely more like, I don't know if they're prioritizing one over the other for January. It may just be that, we have these positions. Let's see what happens or what comes up around January. And if there is a target of ours, or if there is a deal that we can do, we'll go and push for that deal. I don't think they're specifically like, all right, January left back or January center back. I think they have a couple options on their plate, which is good, because I think the more options you have, the better, because then you can at least sneak one in somewhere. So, I think that is probably the more realistic thing. Lion saying, but more importantly, did you just mention that Evans is retiring after the January window? No, not after the window. I think Evans is gonna retire at the end of the season. I don't think Evans will. I mean, he may, but I kind of think he's at that age where I think this may very well be his last season. If it's not necessarily, awful, because technically you could just keep him as a backup emergency if he feels up to it, and we could then move on to Maguire and Lindelof, sell them, get in another center back, so we have a main core of 4, which would be De Ligt, Martinez, Yoro, a new center back, obviously, that fits the profile of, what we scouted, or what we brought in this past summer. And then you would have Johnny Evans as like, sticking around, maybe helping them especially somebody like Leny, with training, advice. And he could be a backup emergency option, and we could the need to use him as much as we've used him in recent times will probably go down, which will be fine because I don't think he can play as many games, and he also can't play 90 minutes for so many games. So, you know, but there is the possibility that he retires at the end of the season. He is he's 35. He'll be 36 at some point. And it is sort of kind of hard for him to stay fit and stuff. So, it depends on how his body is doing. Only he really knows. But I think, it definitely is, I definitely think it is a strong possibility that he could go. And he could be our defensive coach. Well, maybe. But I think, he needs to get badges for that and stuff. And we do have, we do have coaches right now that are doing all aspects of training, attacking, midfield, and defending. I think even who was it? Even I think Hoyland or something even mentioned that even Ruud van Nistelrooy is helping out with the defensive aspect, which isn't necessarily bad because he is, or was one of the top strikers. And if he's smart enough, he can think and of both aspects of the game, where he can kind of teach the defense of what to expect from a top striker, but then he can also help us strikers out in improving in that area as well. So I don't think it's actually a bad aspect, that's going on at the club right now, because he does seem to be a very good coach, and definitely a good assistant coach. So but let's move into this. Rajat saying no Anthony, not natural left back or left mid. I mean, Anthony's not a left back. He's not a left back at all. And on Anthony, which we can talk about right now. Let me just get rid of these. That's quite annoying. So apparently, according to Footy Insider, I think one or two other mid-tier, lower-end tier sources, apparently Manchester United are set to entertain loan offers for Anthony in January. And I think this is something we probably have to keep an eye on, because I think it is, while it is Footy Insider 24/7, and it's not, Laurie Whitwell or something like that, or Fabrizio Romano per se. I think that there is quite a strong possibility that Anthony might be sent on loan, because I don't think, from what we've seen so far, there's nothing really for him to add at Manchester United. We're not really missing him at this point. He's not really playing a lot, and it does seem like that the club are going to want to move him on in the summer, unless they do get some type of an offer for him in January, which doesn't seem likely because of his wages and the fee we paid for him, and the fee we would be looking to recoup is going to be difficult to get for a player that isn't playing, hasn't had a good 2 seasons going into his 3rd season while coming to Manchester United. He's put in very bad performances. So, the loan thing might very well materialize, because I think Manchester United would have to loan him out as the best possible option for him to go to a club, kind of similar to Sancho in a way. You have to loan him to a club where, 1, he's going to play, and 2, he'll be able to, I guess, have the opportunity to kind of impress, to drum up some type of interest in him, because I don't think there's really any interest in him in terms of a transfer. In terms of a loan, I think, teams are more likely to take him on loan, because it's sort of a lesser of a gamble. You take him on loan, you got nothing really to lose. You add a player to your squad, sure, you pay the wage or whatever, but it's not permanent, and if he's shit, you could always send him back and move away from that. So, the loan, I think, is definitely something that Manchester United are looking for, and I wouldn't necessarily be against it anyway, because again, like, you don't really notice him not being involved. I mean, we have Rashford is upping his game. Rashford is improving. He's on course to have a much better season already this season than he did last season, which I think, last season was, if it wasn't his worst season, it was his 2nd worst season. at Manchester United at his whole career. So that's encouraging and good. Garnacho's playing out of his mind and out of his skull, and Diallo was playing good as well. Of course, he dropped a little bit, in his performances, but I think Diallo is has been given, levels above what Anthony has been given. So, and while that's only three wingers per se, um, we do have other options as much as fans don't really like it, and I don't necessarily personally like it either. But you could always shift Bruno out there if we really need to. If Mount comes back and stays healthy and is available, you can shift him out there as well. And there's probably one or two options that I'm not thinking of right now, but Axe is saying, what if they send Anthony on loan? He gets brilliant, then comes back and gets shitty after all of that. Well, the thing is, I think I don't think if they send him out on loan, I think that pretty much ends his chapter at Manchester United. I don't think. I would like to hope and think, based off of what Omar Barada believes in and how the way Omar Barada operates, I think they will look and evaluate Anthony and, what he's done in training. They'll speak to the coaches and staff, of course. They'll evaluate his 2 seasons plus this season. They'll evaluate the loan, and they'll probably, more than likely, hopefully, come to the conclusion that he's just not cut out for Manchester United. I don't think, maybe in the past we would be naive and let's say we send him to a team that's like way below our level or to a league that is not up to the Premier League standard and he impresses there. I think in the past we might be stupid enough to be like, well, he's done good there, let's give him another chance. And then he comes back and he has a horrid time and we devalue him and lose interest from other clubs in him. Whereas I think if they're going to send him on loan, I think that's pretty much the end because they're probably doing it so that they can materialize a move in the summer. So it would pretty much probably be already determined that he is one that is going to be sold regardless of what he does because they've seen enough of him at Manchester United. He clearly does not fit Manchester United in one way or another. And therefore they have to move him on because it is really a waste of a wage and they can, get some type of a fee, get his wage off of the books and bring in, potentially another winger, something that fits the project a lot better. Because, his abilities don't really fit what we really need. Because, as direct as Garnacho is, as direct as Marcus Rashford are, and, they do like to cut in and have their shots and stuff like that, they are way better at creating as well than Anthony. Anthony is really a one-trick pony, especially on the right-hand side. I don't know, it's taken a long time for Ten Hag to kind of put Rashford on the right, Garnacho on the left. I hope he continues with that because I think it's good for the balance of the squad. I think it helps the squad out in many different aspects. So I want him to continue with that. And I think maybe the only shot, and it's a shot in the dark really, is if he decides to stick with that and then he also plays Anthony on the left. And maybe Anthony can create some more stuff. The problem is then Anthony, he can't use his right foot, but maybe he'll be able to create more. He can't really create anything on that right-hand side. He can't use his right foot really. And he constantly just cuts in and has a shot. Every time Anthony goes on the pitch, me, you, and everybody else, and even the opposition, everybody knows what he's going to do. He's going to dribble, or he's going to try and dribble, and he's going to definitely cut inside, and he's definitely going to take one of those shots with his left foot to the far corner. It's expected. So, yeah, I don't think he offers enough when he's on the pitch. So, I wonder how he's playing so well for Ajax. Well, number one, the Dutch league ain't the Premier League. Number two, this system, apparently, at Ajax is not the same as at Manchester United. So I think there's a numerous amount of factors, that help in that. I don't think, just think about Anthony. Like, he doesn't really fit, would he fit any top 6 club in the Premier League? No. And I think it would be a struggle. I think he would be struggling to kind of go into a mid-table team as well. Now you never know, because there was somebody like Andreas Pereira who has gone to Fulham and who has made a place for himself at Fulham. And he plays very, very well for them, and he is an important player for them. So, maybe at that level, he'll be able to get in. But Manchester United are not looking to be a mid-table team. We're looking to be challenging for trophies and win trophies. And I think if you think of any top six team, Anthony, you know, especially on like Manchester City and Liverpool, probably even Arsenal, there's a real argument that the guy doesn't even get on the bench. So, while Ajax is Ajax, and maybe, the system helped him with the players around him and the way they played, maybe allowed him to excel. But also in the Dutch league, the level between the Dutch league and the Premier League is significantly lower. And even some of the Champions League matches. Now, obviously, they played Real Madrid and other big teams, but there was some smaller teams that they played in there as well. And, while it is the Champions League and it's Europe, the Premier League has very, very high quality, and it's just a totally different animal. It's way faster and it's way stronger. So that's maybe why he's really been struggling. Also, there's so many factors. It could just be England itself. He could have a hard time adjusting. He is Brazilian at the end of the day. And as silly as it might sound, the weather, the just the culture and stuff like that, he might just kind of feel very out of place. And we've discussed how important, like confidence and kind of a feeling of belonging, does help you with performances on the pitch. So maybe there's a combination of things that are going on with Anthony, that has led to him being so poor at Manchester United. But yeah, I do think that a loan is definitely a strong possibility. And I think, if he does get loaned, I think that it is more than likely the end of his time at Manchester United, because I think we'll see him, if we are able to drum up some concrete interest in the summer, I think they will move him on. I think it's already been heavily linked and discussed. I think it is something that the club is definitely looking to do. But I think they are struggling in the aspect of that nobody really wants him, or the fee that they're willing to pay is very, very low, and Manchester United do want to try and recoup as much money as possible from Anthony. We've already kind of seen this play out from INEOS before as well, in terms of that, they will offer up loans, or they will offer up some type of deal where they can move the player on, and get some sort of, a percentage of a sell-on fee, performance-based clauses, etc., etc. So, yeah. And Line's saying, I do wonder if all the hate Anthony receives would stop if he was able to feel comfortable to express himself on the pitch, like in Amsterdam, where he was appreciated. Well, that's one of the problems as well, Lions. We've spoke about this many times. Manchester United, is a different animal. It's a different beast. We have 10 million microscopes on us. You know what I mean? We have immense pressure on us. There is a different spotlight when you come to Manchester United, and not every player, not every person can come to Manchester United and flourish. It is a difficult environment, especially when you couple it with how bad we've been. It makes it even worse, because there is less patience. There's more of a demand for you to perform. And there's just more eyes on you, so there's more scrutiny. Everything you do will be scrutinized times 50 compared to, I'm sure there's things that he's done at Ajax that nobody really paid attention to. And it's not a disrespect to Ajax. It's just Ajax is in the Dutch league, and there's not as many eyes on Ajax and the Dutch league compared to Manchester United in the Premier League. Anthony goes on, does one bad thing, he gets clipped, and it gets sent all over the world. And it gets viewed by millions and millions and millions of people. He might have done something similar at Ajax and nobody really seen it. Or if they did see it, it was viewed on a much smaller scale. So, that's also one of the things, like, he might not necessarily be a horrible player, but for Manchester United, he clearly wasn't the correct fit, and he clearly wasn't the correct buy, and he clearly he just doesn't fit the club, and he has to be moved on to somewhere else for himself, but also for the club. Lions also saying, think from the mental health aspect, I would say the loan would be good for him and get away from all the toxicity. I mean, it would probably be best for everybody. It would be best for United because we can drum up maybe some interest. And maybe he can refine some form and some confidence in himself playing somewhere else. It depends where he gets loaned as well. I don't have any names to mind right now because um there hasn't been anything mentioned, and I don't necessarily know what would be the best fit for him in terms of to achieve that. But yeah, you're right. It could be draining. And I'm sure it's not the best situation. You know what I mean? It's not necessarily helping him. He's clearly struggling. Um and he's having a tough time. So, I think a loan would be good in that aspect as well. Um and Axe is asking, but when will he come back? When will he come back? Not a buyback clause, um, a sell-on clause. A sell-on clause. A sell-on clause and performance-based clauses. For example, if he scores a certain amount of goals, if he hits a certain amount of appearances at whatever new club he would be sold to. If you're asking me when he will come back, he would be loaned from January to the end of the season. Um, and then at the end of the season, he will come back. And then we would look to sell him in that aspect. I don't I like I said, I think if we loan him, I think he's done. I think if United actually move out of their way to loan him in January, I think that means that he will be done. I don't think he's I don't think he's I don't think he'll make it back. I think that's pretty much the end of his time at Manchester United. Um Memes of Anthony on the net have millions of views. Poor guy. Something should be done to focus on players' mental health. Imagine if you would do a shit thing and more than 50 million people see it. I mean, they are supposed to have something, especially at a club like Manchester United. There should be like social media training. I'm pretty sure we have it. I don't know to what extent of how good it is, but I'm sure they have it. And also, while it is on a bigger level, they have been kind of dealing with these sort of things basically for a good amount of their careers anyway, because there's always a lot of eyes on them. There's always a lot of talk and speculation. Um, but it just doesn't help. And it does have an effect. And I think there's only so much you can do anyway. It really does have to come down to the individual at the end of the day. You have to try, you have to have some type of a mental toughness. You have to have, and every person is different. Every player is different because they're human beings. Some people are more mentally tougher than others. Some can learn to develop a mental toughness. Some struggle with it their whole career, they're humans. They're humans. They're not robots. We can't really program them to kind of just ignore, what happens. And that's why I'm saying some players, that's why not every person can come to Manchester United and succeed. It has to be based on your personality. It has to be based on your attitude along with your skill and your just mental fortitude. Some people, depending on the upbringing, depending on, what they've gone through in life, some people have a lot tougher shells. Some people have a much stronger um mental way of dealing with things. Some people are smarter about the way they deal with things as well. You sometimes you can't really learn that stuff. Sometimes it's just part of you. Sometimes people can learn it, but not everybody. Everybody is different. Every individual player has a different characteristics. And that's why I'm saying, just sometimes players like and that's why it's always a hard thing, because a lot of players, they get criticized. A lot of players get absolutely ripped to shreds as, they are a shit player, they are this and that. And sometimes it's, what it is that they're just not a good fit for the club. That's why recruitment and getting the recruitment right is important, because there's so many different aspects. It's not just about the talent of the player. It's about their background. It's about their attitude. What did they do, outside of football? How did they live their life? What have they been through? What have they got going around them? There's so many different factors. That's why stuff like that is very, very important. And my good buddy Mawson is in here. Good to see you, Mawson. I'm glad that you're joining in here. It's good to hear from you. I haven't seen you in quite some time. So Mawson is somebody I know personally. To the rest of the chat, we've worked together in the past. And yeah, he found my show not too long ago, and he's just joined the chat and said hello. So it's good to hear from you, Mawson. I hope everything is good. I hope you're doing well. Yeah. So I'm glad you jumped in. And Lines is saying, it's fair play to him. Axe is saying there should be a cap on hate comments online. Well, that's a different discussion for a different topic. I don't know. There's that's an interesting thing, but it's also very intricate, and it's also very hard. I think we've seen examples of that, and it leads to some things that make it quite challenging to do. And Lines is saying criticism is good, but it must be constructive. Well, the problem, Lines, that I would really say is that there is, and I think you'll find it in any club, in any aspect of a fan base, but there is a section of our fans, and I don't think they're a large section, but there is a section of our fans that are extremely toxic, and they attack and try to tear down players that they, for whatever reason, don't like or don't think are good, or threaten the position of one of their favorite players. For example, if somebody is, for example, Sancho FC, and I think we've seen it between Sancho FC and people that were trying to back Anthony. There was a lot of people that were Sancho FC that were literally attacking Anthony because he was in direct competition for, I guess, their position at the club. And Sancho was getting all this hate and shit. Anthony came in. There was a lot of hype around him. Once he started doing bad, they started attacking Anthony because they were like, look, you attack Sancho, but Anthony is much worse. And, attack Anthony. So it is a problem. And actually, that's going on with Xerxes. And I wanted to mention this, and I guess we can mention it now before we get to the other topics. But I seen some talk about Xerxes yesterday after he came on, and I think what Manchester United fans need to understand is that, Joshua Xerxes is in a developmental year. He's in a developmental period. He's young. He was at Bologna. We need to give him a year to develop. For me personally, I don't expect much from Joshua Xerxes. I don't. What I want to see out of Joshua Xerxes is when we get to the end of the season, I want to look back at the beginning of the season and compare it to the end of the season and see that how he's developed, and seeing that he has developed his game. He's gotten better, he's gotten stronger, and he's a much better player. I don't expect Joshua Xerxes to be coming in and scoring 15 goals this season. Now, if he does it, it's great, but I don't expect it to happen. I think it's an unnecessary pressure. The kid is clearly in an adjustment period. At Bologna, he was in and out of the squad, and there was a real argument being made that he needed another year at Bologna anyway to develop. He's clearly skipped that year at Bologna, come to Manchester United, because sometimes that's just how football works. I mean, the club wanted to sell him, and we wanted to buy him, and he obviously took the move. But for me personally, he gets this 1 year, and I try to give every player, this year, and I think it's the right thing to do. Some players, they don't really need it. I think Maz is one of those players that's a prime example. He doesn't really need the adjustment period. He's come in and he's played great. And he's clearly, but he is older and he is more experienced, and he was playing at Bayern Munich for a numerous amount of years as well. There's a clear difference between Xerxes and Mazuari. So, and Lines saying, Xerxes is actually the same. He's just a boy, and he is, and that's what I'm saying. And I've seen, numerous amount of our fans kind of really going in on Xerxes and kind of just ripping him down and then ripping him apart. And I think it's very, very unfair on the kid because, he's here to develop. He's here to learn. He's one for the future. And while we can use his help and we do need him to perform some decently, some decency on the pitch, yeah, at the same time, there has to be an understanding that he is just a boy. He's going to have ups. He's going to have downs. And he's different to Kobe Mainu because Kobe Mainu's come to the youth academy. He understands Manchester United a little bit more. He's adjusted a little bit more to English football. he, has a different circumstance than Joshua Xerxes. So I you know I we need to be a little bit more fair with these players. We can't be attacking them and ripping them down, especially players at that age. This isn't, we didn't sign Kylian Mbappe. Joshua Xerxes isn't Kylian Mbappe. He is not a player that you expect to be the finished article. He is a player that is 19 that has good potential. He has some good attributes. He has some attributes that he needs to strengthen and improve on. And I think, if we stick with him and we develop him correctly, he will get there at some point. But to demand it immediately, I think is completely unfair for his circumstance. And people will make the excuse or the argument that it's Manchester United and you need to perform, but that's not really necessarily his fault. That is the club. They've decided to go down this path. They've decided to get Erasmus Højlund and then get a Joshua Xerxes. In reality, if you want somebody to perform, then the club should have gone and got somebody that is more well developed and established, like a 26-year-old or even a 24 or 25-year-old that has good experience in somewhere. A cap was put on your hate comment. Yeah, I mean, I don't know about that, but what hate comment? Where? But indeed, the demands are crazy high. Yeah, I mean, our fans have to be more reasonable with players, for sure. But let's segue into this real quick, because this was also put out and we were talking about ins and outs. So Christian Eriksen, this is from Fabrizio Romano directly, saying that there are currently no contacts ongoing between the Manchester United board and Christian Eriksen over a new contract. He is likely to leave the club as a free agent in the summer. And I think this is something else that we need to keep an eye on and we need to look at. Because we already discussed, the potential of Maguire going, Lindelof going, Johnny Evans may retire. And we've also discussed that, Christian Eriksen is most likely set to leave at the end of the summer, as well as Casemiro, I would say most likely. So we are going to need to get centre back. We are going to need to get another centre mid, most likely a centre defensive mid, I would say. And we might be able to get this position maybe ahead of time in January, or we might have to wait till the summer. But I think, in my opinion, it would be the correct move. I think we should thank Christian Eriksen for everything he's done for the club. And while he's been playing decently good this season and he's had sort of a resurgence, especially from last season, I think he's of that age that we kind of need to move him on. And we kind of have to continue with the rebuild and the project that we're at, because there's not really a future in him going forward. He is pretty much at the end of his career. So, I think the correct decision is we let him go. He will leave as a free agent. We should not be giving him a new contract, and we should be looking to get in somebody that fits the project that INEOS are setting up at Manchester United, and somebody that is going to fit into that project, that is going to be around for quite a numerous amount of years, that can also grow and develop with the rest of the players that we've brung in. So yeah, I mean, we shouldn't be giving him a contract, in my opinion. And if he was to get a contract, it would have to be on reduced wages, and it would have to probably be only for a year or so. If they do decide to keep him around, but I would be looking at getting, a younger player somewhere between 24 to 26, maybe even a little bit younger if you get a 22-year-old or something like that. We need players that are going to be here for the next 6, 7, 8 years, so that when we do have the squad actually put together, they'll be around for quite some time, and playing together, sort of kind of like the project that kind of like City did, where they did get a group of players kind of all around a similar age, and then once everything started to really click, they kind of just solidified themselves, and they've been together for quite a numerous amount of years. I mean, Liverpool did something similar to that extent as well. And Lions saying Manchester United is not what it is. Obviously, to compare United from the past to now is unfair and putting unnecessary pressure on them. We all just need to be patient. Yeah, but there's just, people, some of our fans, they get lost in that, and they get lost in the fact that they're trying to uphold and maintain the standards at the club. um and they then point out that, you're making excuses for players, this and that, and you are the problem with the club. You are the reason why the standards at the club have dropped. You accept the mediocrity and this and that. I mean, they're very aggressive, they're very toxic people, they're hard to deal with, they're hard to have a conversation with. And they don't really listen to reason. So, it is tough, but they do exist. And they do support the club. So, at the end of the day. But I think generally, I think for the most part, the majority of people do understand that. But we have to be aware that it does happen within our own fan base, and we have to really protect the players. We have to protect our players. We have to protect Joshua Xerxes and etc. Because they will be attacked, and it is unfair. Now we had updates on Manchester United are continuing their youth search, and we are keeping an eye and we are scouting on a couple of Wonderkids, and one of them is this. This is coming from a baller, so take it with a grain of salt because it's a Portuguese outlet that is kind of similar to the Sun in a way. They say a lot of clickbait bullshit. Um, but Manchester United have explored the possibility of signing 17-year-old Sporting CB wonderkid Giovanni Quenda. He has been dubbed as one of the most promising players of his generation. And I just kind of went out of the way to look up Giovanni Quenda. So he hasn't made a senior appearance for Sporting yet. So it's not like he's in the Sporting it's not like he's in the Sporting first team. So this would be quite one of a developmental and would definitely go into our under 18s or under 21s. It says he has a current market value of about 15 million euros. He hasn't made a cap for the Portugal senior team yet. He's played for the Portugal under 17 team 18 times. And he has 6 goals for them. And he has just been moved up, and has more recently, October 11th, played for the Portugal under 21 team, where he has made 2 appearances with no goals. And a more detailed type of thing for all his seasons combined, he has so far he has played, all right, so he has played a couple for Sporting in terms of, well, actually I don't even know what this is. Is this the on date? I don't even know. Hold on, I gotta see the detailed aspect of this. This doesn't it so it doesn't tell you if this is Sporting or it's under 23s, but it says that he's made 2 appearances in the Champions League for Sporting. He's made 8 appearances in the Portuguese league for Sporting. Appearances. Basically overall, his time being right now, he's been in the squad 47 times. He's made 45 appearances. And he has 12 goals and 10 assists in his 45 appearances. And that's combining everything from in the under 23s for the Portuguese team, you know, basically his time in the academy in Sporting. He does play winger. He can play right wing or left wing, but his main position is a right winger. He can play left wing as well, though. And yeah, so he definitely seems like one for the future. Yeah, and he's made 2 appearances for Sporting in the Champions League. So, but he has no contributions as of yet in the senior level. So definitely one to keep an eye on. Definitely interesting because he's been quoted as one of the most promising players of his generation. I think that's been said many times about many players. But let's see. Let's see what happens. And Lion saying, I've just recently came to this conclusion. Old dogs can learn new tricks. Yeah, to a certain extent, I would say. Um, and Axe saying he can see the moon and Jupiter now. And the Lions is wondering what he's smoking and that he wants some. Lions saying the sporting wonder kids are always welcome. 17 million. Anyone? I mean, yeah. They do have a good youth academy. They do produce high quality youth prospects, albeit they don't always work out because it's impossible to have 100% success rate, but they do have one of the best youth academies in the world. And especially, from Sporting and Benfica, they do tend to have very, very good wonder kids. So it is going to be interesting to see. And we are monitoring that, and that goes hand in hand with also that it's been reported that Manchester United are among the clubs following a 17-year-old River Plate talent whose name is Franco Mastantuono. So he is another one that is apparently on Manchester United's radar, as much as we love the youth. And from what I can see, his main position is attacking midfielder, so it would be like a cam, basically where Bruno and Mason Mount really play. But he can also technically play as a right winger, or he has been used as a right winger. His overall career, he has see specifically for River Plate senior team. For River Plate senior team, he's made 33 appearances. He's played in a couple matches. He has 3 goals and 2 assists. And overall, so it would be the combination of the senior team and the youth team for River Plate. He's made 34 appearances. He has 4 goals and 2 assists. He has been used as an attacking midfielder as his main position. He's played right wing, right mid, and he's played left mid 1 time. Right mid, he's played twice. Right wing, he's played 7 times. So, this guy is another interesting one. Obviously, he's very, very young. We don't know much about him. I don't watch River Plate. I've never watched the kid play. He's valued at around 13 million euros right now. But obviously, good that he has the ability to play multiple different positions in that aspect. And another one that isn't going to be popping up on your screen because I forgot to put it in. But somebody else that we've been linked to is his name is Morten Frendrup. Now this man is a little bit more developed. He's a little bit older. He's 23 years old. He plays at Genoa, and he is a main position is a center mid and a defensive mid. He can also, or he has also been used in a couple different positions in a couple different times. He's been played at right mid 6 times. He's been played at left mid 7 times. He's been used at left back twice, and he's been used at right back 4 times throughout his career. In total, he's played 226 matches. He was, I don't even know what leagues they are in, to be quite honest, but he joined, actually, I can't even see. So he was from Brøndby Youth, and he joined Genoa in 2022. So he's been in the Serie A for, this would be his 2nd season now. They bought him for 3.5 million euros with a total fee of 3.9 million euros. His current market value is 20 million euros. And so far, he has played for the national team. He has made 1 cap at the senior level, and he has played for the under-21s 11 times with 1 goal. He's played with the under-19s 13 times. Played with the under-18s 5 times. He's played with the under-17 15 times, and the under-16s 3 times. He of recently, I guess in his time now, why doesn't it tell me? All right, it doesn't tell me. Um, but yeah, so his time playing central midfield, he has 128 appearances. He has 6 goals and 8 assists. And at defensive midfield, he's played 54 times with 1 goal, 4 assists. In his total appearances. So, this to me seems a little bit more like the profile that I was just discussing in terms of a replacement for Christian Eriksen, or somebody to come in that aspect, because he's what, 23, right? So he's right around that age. He might be ready to take kind of a next step. It's one that we can develop, and one that, you know, if he's good enough, he'll be able to be at the club for the next 8+ years or so. So, you know, that was an interesting update that I thought that got put after following the Christian Eriksen news. I forgot who reported that. It was coming from Dean Jones Soccer reported this, and saying that Manchester United are monitoring Genoa midfielder Morten Frendrup. So, yeah, there's that definitely to keep an eye on as well. Not friend drop, friend droop. You know, my American accent, FRENDRUP, friend droop, droop. My pronunciation of things is not the great, but you get it. You can find it. And Abdullah Irwan, happy Yoro is back. Yes, Yoro is back. He's not back, but he is edging closer to being back. Abdullah, he has done individual training. He has not participated in team training. Once he participates in team training, which I believe will be probably in the next couple weeks, I would assume, then he will be even closer to making his return to the actual pitch and be involved in the squad. So, it's good that Yoro is back. We're all excited. We're happy because, you know, our new signing, he's kind of been robbed of his chance to kind of really develop and show his worth. So he will be back very, very soon, which is good because the more players we have, the better. The stronger the squad is and all that stuff. So, you know, for sure, Leny Yoro, we need him back. Now, who can please explain the name Endrick to me? The Endrick meme. Which Endrick meme? The one with Charlton? Because I could sort of explain it, but this was the update. This is the update that we got from about Xabi Alonso that I mentioned at the beginning of the show. That doesn't necessarily go directly to Manchester United, but it is somewhere, you know, implication, because we did try to apparently offer Xabi Alonso to come to the club in the summer. He turned it down to stay at Leverkusen. There was talk about him a couple weeks ago when it seemed like Ten Hag might get sacked. And it's one to keep an eye on because we still don't, you know, there's still some uncertainty around Ten Hag, depending on how he's going to do. You know, if it does go bad from here, he could very well end up losing his job, and then, you know, we might have to be looking at this. So this came from Plettenberg, Plettigol, and, you know, citing Burger, PJ, and Sky Sports, DE, basically saying Bayern Leverkusen are starting to prepare for Xabi Alonso's departure next summer. Alonso is a candidate at Real Madrid and Manchester City, with Manchester City showing concrete interest and preparing for the possibility that Pep Guardiola leaves next summer, as per The Athletic. Liverpool are out of the race at this point, as they are very happy with Arne Slot. The contract of the 42-year-old runs until 2026. However, Leverkusen are already looking for a successor, with Sebastian Honeb and Sandro Wenger being considered. So, you know, this really just highlights the fact that, you know, if we do sack Ten Hag, you know, there is going to be high competition for Xabi Alonso. He is probably on the top of the list for most clubs around the world. And, you know, I did mention in the past that Real Madrid, there is the possibility that this is Carlo Ancelotti's last season and that he will leave. There's also the possibility that Pep Guardiola may leave Manchester City at the end of this season. It is still yet to be seen. There has been no confirmation either way of if he is staying or going. I don't think he's necessarily made a decision um, about it yet. And therefore, there may be a potential that he goes. I think the unfortunate thing for Manchester United, and this is why it's important that, you know, we get a stronger project and we build ourselves up, is that we are not really in a position to compete with Real Madrid or Manchester City in terms of trying to prize what is basically the top candidate or top coach, barring the other two that I mentioned already that are at Madrid and are at City. Um, as a manager, I mean, if we go into a competition to try and pull Xabi Alonso, and there is a vacancy at Real Madrid and there is a vacancy at Manchester City, when you compare Madrid's project and you compare even City project to our project, we are clearly at the bottom of that list. So the pull for us to get him will be very, very difficult, and it'll probably be very, very unlikely that we get him. So we would have to go a different route. Now, now where that also plays into is that somebody like Sebastian Honeb has been mentioned with Manchester United previously, and therefore, you know, he may end up going to Leverkusen, which will remove another person off of the kind of list that we have. So, you know, it is quite a problem. And we have to wait and see because nothing is concrete. Obviously, Xabi won't leave until the end of the season, and we won't really know what's going to happen with Carlo or Pep Guardiola. And in the grander, larger scale of things, you know, it just puts into perspective that, listen, like if Ten Hag does end up getting sacked, there may become a big managerial battle out there in the summer because there might be a vacancy at Madrid, there might be a vacancy at City, there might be a vacancy at some other clubs that don't have a vacancy right now, but it can pop up. Which will mean that there's more competition for managers, which will put us in a position of being less likely to get maybe some of the more top tier targets because they might go to clubs and pick. So for example, if we have a top 5 list and they're all very top tier, right, we can lose 2 out of those 5 immediately because they're more than likely to go to a Madrid or a City over us because we are still in a state of sort of a mess. We are still trying to figure it out, and also you know, just our history over the past 11 years, when you compare it to both those clubs, is nowhere near in terms of achievement and being successful. And every manager that has come here has failed. And if we sack Ten Hag, that will be another manager that is considered to have failed. And you know, certainly, you know, if you're a Xabi Alonso or something, you're looking at it, and in terms of project-wise, you're like, well, Madrid is Madrid. They always provide the best possibility for the manager to succeed. Look at the players that they have at the squad now. Look at the players that they're potentially going to get, such as Alphonso Davies on a free and etc. It's almost like a free hit for you if you are good at your job and you're good at a manager. You go there with that squad. You really go win the league, and you'll have a good shot at winning the Champions League. And it's only going to help you out. At the same time, Manchester City have been very good in the project that they've done with Pep Guardiola, and they've been successful at it as well. And they are similar to Madrid in terms of the fact of how they've provided players for the manager to succeed, and they've provided an environment for the manager to succeed. Whereas Manchester United have not done that in 11 plus years. So it's something that we're going to have to, you know, look at when the time comes more near, but it is something to just keep in mind because, you know, we could be stuck in a situation where we might end up having to get, you know, not a first choice, not a second choice, and maybe not even a third choice. We might end up with a 4th choice or a 5th choice in our candidates if Erik ten Hag does end up, you know, getting sacked at some point. And Axe was asking about the Charlton one. Well, there was an interview somewhere or something with Endrick, and Endrick made some ridiculous statements basically saying that his favorite player is Sir Bobby Charlton, and he said something else about Sir Bobby Charlton, and everybody kind of made fun of him because um or it was something like his favorite player to watch was Bobby Charlton, and everybody was like, "What are you talking about? You weren't even born when the guy was playing, so how could he be your favorite player to watch?" It's something ridiculous, but you could look it up for a more accurate thing. But in general, that's what it was. Ray is in here as well. Ray, good to see you. He's saying how's everyone? He feels good after a good performance. So I take it that you watched the match after, because I know that you weren't able to catch it at that time. And Axe asking, will Guardiola leave? Why? Well, it's been discussed for quite some time, Axe, that Guardiola at some point will leave Manchester City. I don't think he's going to pull a Ferguson and stay there for 20-something odd years. He's discussed it numerous amount of times. And I think at some point Guardiola, every person has different aspirations. I don't think Guardiola wants to do 20 years at Manchester City. I don't think he wants to necessarily be that manager for that, and he has been managing at the top level for quite some time now. You know what I mean? Like, he started at Barca, went to Bayern, and he's at City, and he does have aspirations of being coaching a national team, regardless of whatever national team it is, whether it's Spain or another. He's stated that numerous amount of times, so he will go at some point, and it does seem like it is edging even closer and closer as time moves forward. I would tell you, if it's not this season, I would expect it within the next 2 seasons for sure. If not this season, next season, and then for sure by the 3rd season. Because if he stays, they might give him a 2-year, and then he'll stay for another 2 years. But I would expect him to go after that. I think the indications coming directly from him and out of his mouth, he will leave at some point, and that some point is coming closer and closer every season that we get. So, it is expected for him to go at some point. And Lines is saying, let Xabi go to Liverpool, we take Slot. Well, I don't think that's going to happen. I think, obviously Slot is doing very, very well at Liverpool. To put a pun intended, he's slotted right in. Very, very well. They're at the top of the league at the moment. Something that I didn't really expect, and something that I'm not happy about, because I was hoping that there's going to be a drop-off after Klopp. I hoped there was going to be like this sort of struggle adjustment period, but they seem to hit the ground running, and hopefully it doesn't continue, because if it does continue, Liverpool will end up winning the league, I think, in the current state, because Manchester City don't seem as strong as Manchester City usually do. They are technically grifting out results right now. They kind of sneaked it against Wolves. There was a lot of controversy in the way they won that match, and that is not the first time that's happened this season. Now, obviously, Manchester City always turn it up, once they hit the January period, but from here to then, they couldn't drop some points, and if Liverpool continued their form, they can put themselves in a very, very good position, especially as well as Arsenal have dropped points. And Arsenal, I think, under Arteta, aren't going to win the Premier League, and I don't think they'll win the Champions League. And I don't think they'll probably win any trophy, really. They'll be there probably in and around challenging or be considered a challenger, but I don't think I don't think they'll be able to make it over the line. And so what we're really looking at right now is really a battle primarily between City and Liverpool at this very moment. And City seem the ones that are less stronger in this period. Liverpool are very, very strong. So yeah, I don't think that'll happen. I think if anything, we would have to battle it out for Xabi. And then our battle would come out worse if there is an opening at Real Madrid or at Manchester City. The toxic comment was that the Rat should invest a lot and buy whomever we want. Money aren't a problem for him, but it is a problem for the club. And I don't know necessarily how that works. And I don't expect him to do that again, Axe. I do get that. And I would say, Axe, if he was the full owner of Manchester United, I would expect him to do it. And I would be on that right away. But the fact that he's not the full owner, and the fact that the Glazers are still here, and the fact that the club is still loaded on debt by the Glazers, I just think, to be fair to the guy, because I wouldn't do it either. And I'm a fan of the club, and I support the club and I love the club, but I think it would be stupid. I think it would be very, very stupid for him to do. Um, it just doesn't make sense in any aspect. And he's been putting in quite a substantial amount of money, and he's going to have to put in a substantial amount of money for the whole stadium project as well. So, you know, I just don't think that's like a realistic thing right now. If he was to take over the club, or if he took over the club 100% and the Glazers weren't here, then yeah, I would be asking for him to be investing a lot more money. But I think for the amount that he's invested in already, the amount that he's going to invest in based on the stadium project, I think he's already put in tons of money considering that he only has about 22% of the club. So yeah. Who is the rat one keeps referring to? He's talking about Sir Jim Ratcliffe line. He's talking about Sir Jim Ratcliffe. And line saying, could you imagine in the Basque country become independent and Guardiola became the manager? He should pay for the whole new stadium. 1 billion in new players pay the debt. End of discussion. If he was the full owner, absolutely. Otherwise, why should he? Technically, why should he? Why won't the Glazers do it? You know what I mean? They own the club. They are the majority owners. Why don't they do it? Why should he do it necessarily? He's just a minority investor. He only owns 22%. Why should he put all his money into the club? Why should he build the whole new stadium, put 1 billion? He has nothing to do with the current state that we're in. He has nothing to do with that we're, almost 1 billion in debt. He has nothing to do with the fact that Old Trafford is falling apart and decaying. He has nothing to do with any of that. So why does it become his responsibility if he doesn't own 100% of the club? If he owned 100% of the club, then he is 100% the owner, and therefore then it does become his responsibility. But as a minority owner at 22%, that just doesn't make sense in any way. If I was Sir Jim and I owned 22%, as much as I would want to, do a whole new stadium and invest 1 billion in players and pay the debt, I wouldn't do it. Why would I do that? Why would I pay for all the Glazers' misuse and mistakes and stuff like that? It doesn't make it doesn't make sense. And again, you would totally be laughed at and discredited in the world of the elites and the billionaires and etc. Everybody would look at you like you are a moron and you are an idiot. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't. And I just want to see. I'm going to go through some of the things real quick. We're going to go through. Eric Ten Hag has been talking. Eric Ten Hag has been speaking. Diego Dalot has made some comments as well. So we're going to run through these. And Ten Hag was at the Football Writers Association Awards dinner. And he also, I guess he was interviewed. He had some quotes and some comments. So Ten Hag being a little bit pulling out his comedian side. When he was talking, he said that he spoke to a friend of his in Germany. And he said that you have to suggest that one of the football writers changes jobs for a week. He then called out Neil Costas, which I thought was hilarious, from The Sun. And he told Neil Costas to come, please. He said, I have a good trip to Istanbul, really relaxing. You face Jose Mourinho. So being a little bit sarcastic, being a little bit facetious there, kind of, inviting Neil Costas, since you want to be so critical of me and my job, how about we switch places for about a week or two? You go manage Manchester United and go face Jose Mourinho in Istanbul. See how you like it, and I'll do your job and criticize the crap out of you, which I thought was actually pretty hilarious from him. He then also spoke about facing Jose Mourinho in Fenerbahce this week and said, it's a big game for both of us. He is a winner. He's won so many trophies. I think he's an example for many, many managers, so I really enjoyed to play against him. Rasmus Højlund has said, and was asked on how he stayed positive during injury. He said, I tried to focus on that. I'm very privileged to be a professional footballer. Obviously, there's downsides and upsides. We get critics, but also sometimes we are superstars. I'm living the dream every day. And I think that goes kind of into the conversation that we spoke about earlier about, Anthony and all the really bad, kind of sort of abuse / criticism that he gets. And That's what I'm saying. Like, Anthony obviously views it very differently than the way Rasmus does. Rasmus just providing a little bit of insight into his mindset. And that's what I'm saying. Like, every player is different. Every person, every player is an individual, and they all look at it differently and they handle it differently. And some are able to handle it much better than others. And I think with that mindset that Rasmus has, I think it's a good one to have at a place like Manchester United. You can't you can't let yourself be pulled down into the deep shit. You have to try and keep the positive aspect and then do your talking on the pitch, which I think he has been doing a good job of it so far. Altay Binder has said something somewhere, basically where he said that he's had a conversation with Erik ten Hag about not playing for Manchester United. He said, "I always respect the manager's decision, but I will do everything to play. I'm just focusing on the pitch." Yeah, and I don't know how well that's going to go for you, because I don't know how many opportunities you're really going to get. Erik ten Hag does seem set on keeping, Andre Onana playing as many games as possible, but maybe once in a cup or so. But I don't expect him to play in the Europa League matches, especially at this current state. We need wins, we need performances, we need points. So I don't think he's going to get a look in there. He might get a look in maybe the Carabao Cup or the FA Cup, but even that is very not likely in my opinions at this point. And Erik ten Hag also speaking on Jose Mourinho again, saying, "I really enjoyed to face him, to play against him. He always has good teams, and he is a winner. He has won so many trophies, and I think is an example for many managers. So I really enjoyed to play against him." He then also said, "Of course, you don't do this alone. And first of all, you need incredible good players. Without good players, any manager is poor," which I agree 100% on. And we've talked about this many times about, you need to have the correct players at the club. You can't just coach the players into becoming world-class coaches. They have to have the correct fit. We've used Guardiola as a prime example at City, where he's replaced so many players in certain positions, because if he was able to do that, he would have just coached his championship team into winning a treble or something like that. So it's 100% fact and accurate. And he also said, "And the players can't do it without coaching," which is, goes into the aspect of what we've talked about previously, where I said, this is a club, this is a unit, we are one. It is not just the players, and it is not just the manager, and it is not just the coaches. We are together. Everybody has to do their job, and everything has to fit for you to succeed. So again, I agree with Erik ten Hag 100%. I think 100% a fact. He then continued on to say, "So I also have to say thank you to my coaches, who did an incredibly good job to win the FA Cup." He then spoke on the Brentford match, and he said, "At United, we are just in the season. We are in the start. It was not a good start. We know that, and we are not happy, but we are happy with yesterday. We have a good win and a comeback, but it's just one win. And it is just one win, and we have to build on it. And we can't get necessarily carried away with it, but I hope that they use that opportunity to build on it. And I hope Erik ten Hag doesn't make too many changes from that, because I want to see Rashford back on the right, and I want to see Garnacho back on the left, Rasmus playing there, and etc." Now, Diego Dalot has spoken, and he said quite a numerous amount of things, saying, and Dalot was asked on becoming one of the senior players, and he said, "It's something that's becoming part of me now. I think it came in a natural way. I don't force it. I just feel that being here for this long brings me experience at the club." He continued on by saying, I think it's the way that I like to receive the players, the way that I like for them to feel welcomed when they arrive, making sure that they know the values and the standards of the club. I think that's something that I always try to pass on to them, while never letting myself let go of those standards as well. And I think that is a very good answer, and I think it's a captain answer, really. And I could see Diego Dalot, taking up the mantle of captaincy, because I've always liked his attitude, I've liked his mindset, I've liked his professionalism. I think he has a good ability as well. Um, so I could see at one point in the future, Delo really becoming the captain of Manchester United. I think he has the qualities for it. I think he has the correct mindset and the correct just attitude for it. Um, he was asked on his passion and mentality, and he said, I think it's something that comes when you have been with the club for so long. You start looking at the club a bit more than just a player, than just something that you're working for. And that's the way that I like to approach things. Again, I think a very, very good answer. It kind of shows a captain quality there. And it's something that, I think every person, every fan of Manchester United is going to actually absolutely love that answer. He also then continued on by saying, obviously, when you spend more time on the pitch and you know the emotions that it brings to the fans, then you start becoming a little bit more like them, and think that's the best combination that you can have. When you play for a club and you have that love for the club, I think that it's the perfect match. And I certainly do get that feeling from him. I mean, he is one of those players on the pitch that, but you see the way he acts on the pitch. You see the way he responds to certain things. You see he's always trying to help other players. And you see the way he kind of carries himself. Every time he does these sort of interviews, or questions and responses, his responses are very mature. They're very thought out. They're very clear. And they're very strong in nature. And that's why I do really like his personality and his attitude, and I think he does have the qualities to become a Manchester United captain at some point. Um, Rasmus Højlund, talking about Ruud van Nistelrooy, and I mentioned this earlier. He said everybody's asking me about Ruud van Nistelrooy. He's helping us every day, but he's also helping the defense and the midfield, which I think is quite interesting, because he's, a lot of people just expect Ruud's there. He's there to help the attack, but Ruud is also doing and helping the defense, and he's helping the midfield. So very, very interesting. And Højlund continues on, Van Nistelrooy, saying he's a very good assistant coach, but obviously he's a great striker. You're trying to learn everything about him and all these sorts of things. And then he was asked about his goal against Brentford, and people were saying that it was a Van Nistelrooy finish, and he said, I don't want to be compared to him. If you want to talk about him, he is a role model for us. I can develop a lot alongside him, which I think is a very good answer as well. He also continued on saying, working very close with Ruud van Nistelrooy is a big step for me. He is doing a great job. I'm trying to bring everything I can every time I step on the pitch, especially here at Old Trafford. Um, so yeah, I think based on Ruud's profile that he was as a striker, I think Rasmus Højlund probably is the one that stands out the most to benefit from having Ruud van Nistelrooy there. And I think the amount and the the amount of stuff that will help his development that he could get from Ruud can be absolutely immense for him. And it's going to be important. And I would very much say, the way he played, I mean, I was thinking about it last night when I was going to bed. I mean, the way he played yesterday was absolutely immense. He was everywhere. He did everything, and he was really, really good at it. I mean, he was just all over the place. And then even the flick on by Bruno, the turn and the finish was superb. And it was he doesn't want us to compare it to him, but it was Van Nistelrooy-esque type of finish. And even the positioning, and just that quickness in the turn, and the quickness in the thinking, to make that turn and immediately chip the ball over the goalkeeper, and the technicality of the chip, it was all excellent. And it was a little bit Ruud-esque in there. So hopefully he continues to develop, and he learns as much as Ruud from as possible, because I think if you can mix a little bit of Ruud with the qualities that he has, I think he can become a very, 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 very good striker, in all of Europe. I'm just gonna check to see if we've gotten any news while we've gotten live, and we have one or two other things to tie up at the end of the day. I don't know why, but Aaron Ramsey has been asked about Ineos and Sir Jim Ratcliffe, and he had this comment basically saying that Sir Jim, being a Man United fan, and him then having the chance to own them, I think they'll do an unbelievable job there. It's just going to take a little bit of time. They're very driven people, and they're only used to being the best at what they do. It's never easy in the Premier League to go and just challenge and compete again. But with their ambition and their ideas, I think they'll have a successful spell there. So yeah, I don't necessarily know why or what his relation is to Sir Jim Ratcliffe or whatever that is, but yeah, he was asked about it, and that was his comment. So um and now there is something that's come out that's interesting. That's not necessarily Manchester United related, but apparently Newcastle Saudi Arabia takeover bid could be re-examined by MPs in the wake of apparently there's been WhatsApp leaks. So I'm not 100% on what's going on there. Um, but apparently there has been leaks from WhatsApp group around that, which has led to a lot of controversy. Apparently now it's going to be re-examined, so that's something interesting because they could potentially be kicked out, which I still don't think is going to happen, but I think it's kind of just more of a move. But very very interesting development. That was the first I've heard of that. Um, so yeah, and I'm just sifting through the news. Dimitar Berbatov from Rasmus Hoyland said, "I think as a striker, he needs to be more demanding and arguing, not being so nice and just pushing the buttons of some of the players around him. Like, give me the ball, asking for the ball when the ball is not coming, because I can see that he was doing some runs behind the defense that nobody was seeing him." And I kind of agree with Berbatov there. I think Rasmus at times is a little bit, I think he's a little bit, I would say maybe too nice in that aspect. You do see it kind of in his game where he is traditionally for a striker not as selfish. And I think he does have to push them a little bit more. I think he has to kind of get in their heads of like, give me the damn ball. Give me the ball. Like, I'm making runs. I made 3 runs. You didn't see me on the fucking runs. Um, I was through. If you saw me, open your eyes and give me the ball. Um, he could do with a little bit more, a little bit more, not completely, but he could do with a little bit more of Roy Keane, where he would get in your face and be like, what was that fucking pass? Or open your eyes and what the fuck are you doing? I think he does need a little bit more of that. Because I think sometimes he just lets a little bit too much slide. There are a lot of times where he is making good runs and he would be through on goal, or he is open, and our players just don't see him or just not looking for him. So we need to find a little bit more of that. Um, Yeah, life as a young backup keeper seems difficult. Well, it is. I mean, the keeper position is very hard to get into. I mean, there's only one spot, and it's a position that doesn't involve a lot of rotation. So, it's always a difficult thing to be. So he has to make a decision as well, though. Being he could be happy to be the backup and learn, and maybe at one point in the future he becomes the starting goalkeeper. Or if he's not happy and he wants to play, then he needs to request to leave and go to a club where he will be the starting goalkeeper. That is the life of a goalkeeper. It's one position. There's not a lot of rotation. You don't get a lot of opportunities. And it is what it is. Grace would want him as a captain. Grace would want him as owner of the club. For sure. And Line saying the way he played yesterday, you telling me that this show is recorded? No, it's not recorded. The quote was from yesterday. Or whatever. I don't know. He said yesterday in the quote. It's not recorded. Aaron Ramsey. Yeah, apparently Aaron Ramsey. I don't understand why, but it's something that's been put out. Getting the keeper spot seems more difficult than getting a seat on an F1 team. No, it is. It really is. So I don't know, but It is difficult. And probably the last thing we could probably mention is that Bruno Fernandes is not available for this game because he did receive his red card. So he will not be available for Fenerbahce when we play on Thursday, which is going to make some interesting selection decision because obviously we are without Menu. Manu is not there. I don't believe Mason Mount is back, so Mason Mount won't be available. So what do we kind of do with that? Do we play Xerxes there? Do we put Ericsson there? Because really, then all we're kind of left with at this point would be Casemiro, Ugarte, Ericsson, and then those are three midfielders. I assume Collier is going to be involved in there at some point as well, one way or another. And yeah, I don't know how that actually is gonna. I don't know how that's gonna really pan out. And what you really do there. I could see him putting Ericsson in that role, and I guess maybe putting in Casemiro and Ugarte. Or I could see him, or he could do what some of us have been asking for and putting Joshua Xerxes in that spot where Bruno usually plays, and then having maybe Ericsson and Cass play. But I don't know how well that would work because I don't, that combination of like the lack of defense ability between Xerxes and Ericsson might leave us very exposed. And Mourinho, he's gonna make it tough, and he's gonna have, he's gonna want a midfield battle as well. So, yeah, it's something that is going to be difficult. But there was something that I actually forgot to mention that has apparently leaked out from this account that I've been talking about that seems to be in the know. A lot of top and credible people with faces and whatnot, they do follow this guy. They do take his word for it. He's been right about a numerous and a lot of things. And apparently my answers and my prayers and my rants have been heard by somebody somewhere, because apparently Harry Almas will be on the bench for the game against Fenerbahce on Thursday. And he is going to be involved in the match in some way, one way or another. Now, will he get some minutes? We're not 100% sure, but at least, thankfully, he will be on the bench. I don't know why it's taken this long for him to get at least on the bench, but he will be on the bench, which means that he will be available for selection in the match if we do need him for any circumstance. So thank God, because it's taken so very long, and I still question, and I still don't understand how it's one thing if you don't think he's ready to start, but to not even have him on the bench as an option, I think is absolutely insane. And somewhere, things are happening. I don't know what's changing at the club. I don't know what has happened to Erik ten Hag during the international break in Manchester United. I don't know if Eric went on holiday and just watched a bunch of Manchester United YouTube fan channels and wrote down all the notes and took all the criticisms and all the stuff and put it in a book and then came back and started implementing it. I really don't know, but he's played Rashford on the right yesterday. He's played not yesterday, the day before. He's played Rashford on the right. He's played Garnacho on the left. And now they're putting Harry Almas on the bench. So I don't really know what's going on, but I like it because it's a good change. It's a good change, and I think we're trying different things, and I think they're doing things that the fans have been asking for quite some time. So yeah. And there was this smaller update that I missed on Leny Yoro, saying that he still has a lot of work to do and he will begin the transition to team training when he is ready. His return to competition is not imminent, so there is probably still going to be. So it might be longer than a few weeks, because according to that update. So we just gotta wait and see. But at least he's back on the pitch, and he's doing individual training. That's good to see. And there was this small update. Manchester United are already making plans to stop Ranger fans, because we do have to play Rangers. from entering home sections at Old Trafford despite the Battle of Britain fixture not taking place for another 3 months. I don't know what they're doing to do that. Are we building walls? Have we become a club that builds walls or something like that? It sounds like we're getting ready to go to war. So I don't know. I thought it was kind of a funny update. But yeah, apparently we're doing something like that. Um, which is interesting and stuff like that. But yeah, that's all good stuff. And you guys were saying, Xerxes as Cam, Axe wants Xerxes as Cam, and Lions is saying, "OMG, finally we should get Hoyland and Xerxes. Let's trail the old 442 now." Well, I think you know what we actually it was something I didn't mention before, but at times we were really playing almost in a 442. Um, in some aspect in a way when we played Brentford it was kind of like a 4-4-2 at times at a lot of times the way we were playing. I mean, especially with Bruno, and then there was a lot of interchanging going on with the players up there, but the shape was almost at times it was certainly a 4-4-2. I don't know if we'll go direct in a 4-4-2, but at some points it might be a 4-4-2 for sure. And Lion saying if it doesn't work, then fuck it. At least we can't say he doesn't try new tactics. Well, yeah, I think you might as well give it a go. You might as well give it a try. I don't know how well it's gonna go. And if it doesn't, then obviously we have to move to plan B and stuff like that. But yeah. Axe saying Ratcliffe watches this show. Well, if he does watch this show, I think he should help us get more viewers and stuff like that. He could at least help us in that way, Axe. If he's not going to provide all that money you want him to provide, he could at least help us out in that way. So, Eric is going to lose in Bow content on Thursday with Almas as starting left back. Well, I don't think he'll start. I think he'll be on the bench. For sure. I think he'll be on the bench, and that's all I really wanted. Just have the kid on the bench as an option, because what we need an option, at least at the very least. I do worry because if we start him at left back in a European game, against a Jose Mourinho team, there are grounds that it could go very, very wrong. He can be very, very out of his depth in that aspect, but I would at least have him on the bench just in case. I mean, we don't know how much. We don't know if Maz is going to start. We don't know if Maz can play a lot of minutes. And just for rotation purposes as well. I mean, what if Delo has a shit game? What if, if we play Martinez out there? What if Martinez is having a shit game? Our options to rotate would be very, very limited. At least with that kid, he plays left back, and you could give him an opportunity. Worst comes to worst, your hands are tied, and you say, well, listen, the senior player is not doing a good job. We're getting screwed. We got to take a chance on this kid, and you throw him in there. Eric Ten Hag lurking on those stream of yours. Yeah, I think he's watched a couple for sure. So, get Trump to build them walls. Yeah, they might have to get Trump to build those to secure that vicinity and keep those Ranger fans out of the home areas of Manchester, because it sounds like a war is coming. And we got to protect our people. So, well, listen, we've come to the end of the show. It was a very, very good show. Thank you guys for dropping by. Thank you guys for getting involved. Today is Monday, yes? So, tomorrow we most likely won't be going live. I will look to go live probably Wednesday, and then of course we are going to do the Red Devil recap after the match. Of course, it's going to be late for a lot of you, but we will do it as we always do it. Wednesday we'll do a little bit more preparation. We'll probably gather any of the news from tomorrow that comes out that's interesting, coupled with the news that comes out on Wednesday. And we'll talk a little bit more about the preparation and the match at hand against Fenerbahce and Jose Mourinho. It is going to be somewhat of a box office game, because obviously Jose, being our former manager, kind of returning to play against us. Eric Ten Hag still under fire. He needs a win. He desperately needs a win for Europa League status and our position in the European table. So it's going to be a big, big match. And we're going to do a little bit of a build up for it. But other than that, yeah, thank you guys for dropping by. Thank you, Lines. Thank you, Axe, for getting involved. Ray was in here for a little bit. I think he was listening. Abdullah got involved a tiny bit as well. Rajat was in here earlier. Jason was in here earlier as well. And my buddy Daniel and my good friend Marcin was also in here. So shout out to everybody that jumped in here. Shout out to everybody that hit the like button for me. If you subscribed, and you're a new subscriber, thank you for subscribing. And we look forward to seeing you, going forward. And yeah, very, very good show. Very, very good. And we will see you all on Wednesday then. And I will schedule it ahead of time, and I will try to announce it ahead of time. I will either make a community post or I'll just schedule the show ahead of time. So thank you guys for joining. Thank you guys for getting involved. Thank you guys for being here and sharing your opinions and taking the time to be here with me and talk about Manchester United. As always, I greatly appreciate you guys, and I will catch you guys on the next one. Have a good evening, good night. And before I get off, Lines just saying it might be exactly what Amos needs. First start in Europe and in a hostile environment in Turkey. Maybe it could be. Sometimes you got to rise to the challenge. So we'll see what comes out of that. But we'll talk about it more on Wednesday for sure. But other than that.